Basmanny District, which is located in the east of Central Administrative District, is known for its rich history, especially when it comes to scientists, engineers and innovators.
There's a perfectly simple explanation for this. The world-famous Bauman Moscow State Technical University is located right there.
A lot of great minds started their scientific journey in these worlds, and today we want to share the story of Andrey Tupolev, the famous Soviet aeronautical engineer.
Andrey showed interest in science since his school days. After graduating from gymnasium in his hometown, Tver, he chose to attend PMSTU, which was used to be called Imperial Moscow Technical School in those days, to study aerodynamics. As you can see, there is a memorial plaque in honor of Tupolev right on the wall of the main building.
Tupolev volunteered for the aeronautical workshop headed by Nikolai Zhukovsky, who is also known as the father of Russian aviation. For Tupolev, he was not just a teacher, but a mentor and great inspiration. As a member of this workshop, Tupolev participated in the construction of a glider, on which he made the first flight in 1910. He also built the wind tunnel, which led to the formation of the aerodynamic laboratory of IMTU.
Tupolev completed his studies in 1918 and was awarded the degree of engineer mechanic when he presented his thesis on the development of seaplanes. A couple of years after graduating, in 1920, Tupolev started teaching a course on the basics of aerodynamic calculations in his alma mater.
In 1918, the Central Aerodynamic Institute, also known as TSAGI, was founded by Zhukovsky on the basis of the IMTU Aerodynamic Laboratory. A lot of his beloved students were involved in establishing TSAGI.
Tupolev was a leading figure in developing the institute. Most of the original buildings are located on Radio Street, within 10 minutes from BMSTU. After TSAGI's official foundation, Tupolev was a member of the board of directors and deputy head of the Institute of Experimental Full Metal Aircraft Construction. In 1922, he built the first full metal airplane, which was named Ant-2 after his initials.
In total, he spent 54 years working in TSAGI, right up to his death. The institute consists of a group of workshops, laboratories and factories. Over time, some departments were transformed into independent institutions. For example, the All-Russian Institute of Aviation Materials, also known as VIAM, was founded on the basis of several TSAGI laboratories.
Now, let's go one block to the south from TSAGI to find the Yauza River, which is marked by the academician Tupolev embankment. It was named after Tupolev in 1973. Here you can find two spots that played significant roles in Tupolev's life. The first one is Joint Stock Company Tupolev, which was originally another department of TSAGI called Plant Number 156. But eventually it became the headquarters of Tupolev's design bureau. For almost a century, this company has designed over 100 models of civilian and military aircraft and produced more than 18,000 aircraft, which brought it international fame.
The second remarkable spot is this office building, now called Yauza Tower, but it's famous as Tupolev's Sharashka. In 1937, Tupolev was accused of sabotage and espionage, which led him to being imprisoned.
At first, he spent his time in prison. Then he was moved to a Sharashka for aircraft designers in Bolsheva. And finally, in 1939, the Sharashka moved to this building, which already belonged to Tupolev Design Bureau.
Actually, it was Tupolev himself who offered to use his design department and labor force of his and his inmates to make benefit out of their imprisonment. The approval allowed Tupolev to develop the Tu-2, which would become one of the most important aircraft of the Second World War.
Tu-2 was tailored to meet requirements for a large internal bomb load and speed similar to that of a single-seat fighter. Designed to challenge German combat aircraft, the Tu-2 proved comparable. As a result of Tupolev's creativity and wisdom, the outstanding combat aircraft reached the battlefield in March 1942. and after some modifications based on combat experience, a total of 800 aircraft were built to play a key role in the Red Army's final offensives.
Fortunately, Tupolev's sentence was shortened and Andrey was released in July 1941, allowing him to return to his job as leading designer in Tsagi and his design bureau.
One of the world-famous Tupolev developments was the Tu-104, the first Soviet jet-powered passenger aircraft and the first jetliner in continental Europe. Between 1956 and October 1958, it was the only jet passenger airliner in service in the world.
The first secretary of the CPSU Central Committee, Nikita Khrushchev, liked the Tu-104 plane so much that he decided to take it for his flight to the UK in 1956. The arrival of the Soviet airliner, according to the British press, had a huge effect.
The next day, a second copy of the Tu-104, with a different number, landed in London. In the British newspapers, there was a report that it was totally the same plane, and Russian pilots dressed in all black, called Russian priests, have repainted the numbers on their experimental aircraft.
Chief designer Tupolev was offended and firstly ordered to allocate funds to the pilots to dress them in something fashionable. And the next day, March 25, 1956, 3 Tu-104s were sent to London at once at the same time.
Yesterday, a Soviet jet plane landed in London, so that shattered any idea that the USSR is lagging behind in the struggle for superiority in the field of aviation, the Daily Express newspaper noted.
The Daily Mail stated, the civilian and military experts who gathered to look at Tu-104 were shocked, silent for a long time. The emergence of Tu-104 in Western Europe caused a real furor in the aviation and general public at the other side of the Iron Curtain. It became clear for Europe that the Soviet Union had brilliantly mastered the complex technologies of the aircraft industry and was capable of producing not only modern combat jet airplanes, but also the first-class passenger jets. It was a triumph of the Soviet Union because at that time no other country in the world had ever operated jet passenger airliners.
It's worth mentioning that Tupolev's passion for aircraft was inherited. Tupolev's son Alexei was a successful pioneering aircraft designer, working in his father's design bureau from 1942. After Andrei Nikolaevich passed away, Alexei took his post as the director and the leading designer.
Alexei's son Andrei, named after his famous grandfather, also devoted his life to aviation. He studied aircraft construction and now he's an advisor of Tupolev Public Joint Stock Company director Alexander Gonyukhov. Andrey Tupolev had a younger sister Maria. Her great-grandson Alexander Tupolev also followed the footsteps of his ancestor and studied industrial design at Bauman Moscow State Technical University, Department of Materials and Technology.
Obviously, Andrey Tupolev influenced the world of aviation greatly. The aircraft designed by him set 78 world records and made many significant flights. The most known ones are the rescue of the crew of the steamer Chelyuskin, non-stop flights to the United States via the North Pole by the crews of Valery Chkalov and Mikhail Gromov, and the landing of the scientific expeditions to the North Pole. There are some recent ones as well. In 2020, a new record for the range and duration of flight was set by the Tu-160 supersonic strategic missile carriers. The pilots were in the air for more than 25 hours, having covered more than 20,000 kilometers. Dozens of streets and embankments that are named after Tupolev can be found across the country, as well as in Bratislava, Prague, Amsterdam, and some cities of the former Soviet Union, such as Kiev, Minsk, and Donetsk.
In conclusion, we would like to say that the whole life of Andrey Tupolev was tightly bound with Basmanny District. It is a great honor for us, students of Bauman Moscow State Technical University, to study where this great aircraft designer began his career.